The chamber was dark and cold. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars. A soft red light blinked above the broken cryopod. Commander Raiden opened his eyes slowly. His body was stiff, his breath short. He coughed once and sat up. The cryo-fluid was sticky on his skin. He looked around, confused. Something was wrong. This wasn't how waking from cryo-sleep was supposed to feel. The chamber was damaged. Pipes were broken. Sparks jumped from the walls. The war was over. That much he guessed, but he didn't know if his side had won. Raiden slowly stepped out of the pod. His boots landed on the cold floor with a quiet thud. He reached for a nearby locker, found an emergency suit, and put it on. He checked his wristpad low. Power, no signal. Then he saw her. At first, he thought it was just debris. Maybe a body from the past, but when he stepped closer, his breath caught in his throat. Lying at the foot of his cryopod was a girl. Not human, not enemy. She had pale lavender skin. Long silver hair spread across the metal floor. Her clothes were torn. Her hands were scratched, and her body was trembling. She was alive, just barely. Raiden knelt beside her, unsure if she was dangerous or wounded. He looked closer. She was young, beautiful, and clearly not from any species he had fought. But why was she here, at his pod alone? Raiden reached for the small med scanner on his belt. It beeped softly, scanning her vital signs. Her heart was beating, weak but steady. Suddenly, her eyes opened. Bright violet eyes stared into his, filled with something strange, not fear, not pain, but recognition. She whispered something, her voice dry and shaking. Raiden, he froze. How do you know my name? He asked, but she had already passed out again. Now his heart beat faster. This wasn't normal. Nothing about this was normal. He picked her up carefully, her body light and cold in his arms. He carried her to a safer corner of the ruined chamber. He found an old emergency blanket, wrapped it around her. For a while, he just sat beside her, watching her breathe. Every sound in the ruins felt loud drips, cracks, low hums from dying machines. He stood and searched the chamber. Most systems were dead, no working comms, no food, only broken panels and faded warnings. A shattered screen on the wall still flickered. It showed the date. 6 years had passed since he entered cryo-sleep. 6 years, the war had ended long ago, but no one had come for him. Had everyone forgotten? Had he been left behind? He looked back at the girl. Her silver hair shimmered in the dim light. Even now, she looked peaceful, like she belonged somewhere far better than this broken place. Raiden sat beside her again, whispering, "Who are you? And why do you know?" "Emmy?" As if she heard him, her eyes opened again, just for a second. This time, a single tear rolled down her cheek. "You saved me." "Once," she whispered. "I came back for you." Then she fell asleep once more. Raiden's mind raced. He didn't remember saving anyone like her. Not during the battles, not during the chaos. But her voice was so sure, her look so familiar. He touched his forehead, trying to remember anything. But his memories from the final days of the war were broken, like shattered glass. He stood and looked around the chamber again, this time with new eyes. If she found him, maybe someone else was still out there. Maybe he hadn't been left behind after all. Or maybe she was the only one who remembered him. Raiden looked down at her and made a silent promise. "I'll find out what happened," he said softly, "and I'll protect you, even if I don't remember you." Somewhere deep inside the ruins, a distant noise echoed, a low metal sound, like something crawling. Raiden reached for a broken rifle on the wall. He didn't know what was coming, but he was awake now. And he was not alone. The girl's eyes opened again slowly. Raiden was sitting beside her, his back against the metal wall, holding a damaged rifle. He hadn't slept, not even for a minute. He had been watching her, listening for danger, and thinking, always thinking. Now as her violet eyes met his again, the room felt quiet, too quiet. She blinked once, then twice, her face confused, but her eyes filled with recognition. "Raiden." She whispered again, her voice soft and weak. He leaned closer, surprised. "You keep saying my name," he said. "How do you know me?" She tried to sit up, but her arms trembled, and she fell back down. Raiden reached out to steady her. Gently holding her shoulder, she didn't pull away. "I saw you long ago," she said, her accent strange but her words clear. "You saved me." Raiden frowned, trying to remember. "When?" he asked. "Where?" She looked away, as if the memories hurt. "The sky was fire," she said slowly. "The city burning. You fought the machines. I was trapped." Raiden felt a chill. He had been in many battles, many burning cities, many fire-filled skies. But nothing about her face, her voice, her species felt familiar. Still, something in her eyes made him believe. "What's your name?" he asked. "Neria," she said, almost like a whisper. "I come from the Talvari system. We were part of the war." Raiden's face turned cold. The Talvari were known to have fought on the enemy's side. They had been described in briefings, beautiful, psychic, and dangerous. "You were with the enemy?" he asked, now more cautious. Neria shook her head slowly. "Not by choice," she said. "We were taken, used." She touched her temple gently. "They forced us to fight." Raiden didn't know what to say. He had killed many during the war, all for survival, all for Earth. Now this girl was telling him she was once part of the enemy, and yet she claimed he saved her. "You were different," she said, looking up at him. "Others destroyed, but you protected the weak. You looked at me like I mattered." Raiden's throat felt dry. He didn't remember any of that, but her words hit something deep inside him. She reached into a small pouch at her side and pulled out a thin silver chain. Attached to it was a broken piece of metal, faded and dirty. It had a small human military logo on it. "My people found this," she said, placing it in his hand. "I kept it because I knew it was you." Raiden stared at the tag. It was his. The old dog tag he had lost during a battle on Alkan Ridge, years ago. He didn't remember dropping it, but here it was. In her hands, kept safe all this time. "I waited," she said. "They said you died, but I believed you would wake again." Raiden looked into her eyes again. This time not with suspicion, but with something else. Guilt, confusion, wonder. "You waited 6 years?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, I searched for your signal." The cryopod. It was hidden. Raiden stood and paced the floor. The war had taken everything from him, his team, his mission, his memories, and now, in the ruins of what was once a battlefield, a girl from the other side had found him. He didn't know what to do. Neria sat up again, using the wall for support. "I came here hoping to find you," she said softly. "But I also came with a warning." Raiden turned to her quickly. "What warning?" Her face turned serious, her soft features now tight with fear. "They left something behind," she said. "The war's not over, not really." Raiden's heart sank. "What did they leave?" he asked. "A machine," she said, her voice shaking. "Deep below. Not just a drone. A core." Raiden understood instantly. Military AI cores were forbidden, deadly, and impossible to shut down once activated. "If it wakes up," she said, "it will finish what the war started." Raiden walked to the broken control panel. Thinking fast, his cryopod had been right above that core room. He had been sleeping on top of a bomb, and Neria had found him just in time. "We need to get out of here," he said. "Or stop it." She nodded slowly. "I will help." Raiden gave a weak smile. "Can you even walk?" "I'll try," she said. Trying to stand, she stumbled, but he caught her. "Easy," he said. "We'll move together." They stepped into the hallway, dark and cold. But this time he wasn't alone. And for the first time since the war ended, there was someone beside him who remembered him not as a soldier, but as a protector, someone who waited, someone who believed. The hallway was silent, but not peaceful. Broken lights flickered above, throwing weak flashes across cracked walls. Dust and ash filled the air, and every footstep echoed like thunder. Raiden held the broken rifle tightly, its energy cell half dead. Neria walked slowly beside him, leaning on the wall when needed. She moved with care, eyes watching every corner, every shadow. This place feels haunted, Raiden whispered. Because it is, Neria replied. Not by spirits, but by the machines. Raiden looked around sharply. Drones? He asked. Worse, she said. Leftover war machines, the kind that don't know peace. Raiden had heard stories. At the end of the war, some factions had activated kill-on-sight machines and vanished. These machines followed orders forever. Unable to change, unable to stop. They hunt anything warm. She added, alien or human. They turned a corner and found the hallway collapsed halfway. Raiden helped Neria climb over the rubble. As they moved forward, a strange noise echoed. From deep down the corridor, a low mechanical growl, followed by the sound of metal scraping on metal. They froze. Raiden raised the rifle, and Neria pressed her back to the wall. From the shadows ahead, something moved. A red eye blinked open, glowing in the dark, then another. A machine stepped forward on 4 legs, rusted but deadly. It looked like a hunting dog made from old armor, broken steel, and hate. Warhound. Neria whispered, we need to run. But they were too late. The Warhound locked onto Raiden's heat signature and charged. Raiden fired, the shot striking the machine's side. It sparked but didn't stop. He fired again. Click. Empty. Raiden stepped forward, ready to fight it with his bare hands if needed. The machine jumped at him, claws outstretched. But then light. Neria screamed, her body glowing with a strange purple-blue energy. The wave hit the machine mid-air, sending it crashing into the wall. The Warhound sparked, twitched, and then stopped moving. Raiden stared at Neria, stunned. You did that. Again, he said. She collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. I can only do it once or twice, she said. Then, I need rest. He knelt beside her, helping her stand. We need to get somewhere safe, he said. Fast. They hurried down the hallway, turning left at the old medical bay. Inside, it was quiet, filled with broken beds and faded medical screens. Raiden checked the room, sealed the door, and helped Neria onto one of the cleaner beds. She was pale, trembling, but awake. You saved me again, he said quietly. She gave a weak smile. Now we're even. Raiden sat beside her, looking at the old med screens still flickering. One of them showed power levels deep in the base 1 signal pulsing like a heartbeat. There, he said, pointing. That's where the core is. Neria nodded slowly. That's where they hit it. Raiden looked at her. And if we don't stop it? It will awaken more machines, she said. Enough to restart the war. He stood and walked to the corner where an old control panel still worked. He tapped it carefully, pulling up maps of the lower levels. There's an elevator shaft nearby, he said. We can reach the subcore in 10 minutes if we move fast. Neria sat up slowly, legs shaking, but she nodded. I can keep moving, she said, but I may not have enough energy to protect us again. Raiden placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and warm. Then I'll protect you, he said. They left the med bay, stepping back into the hallway of ghosts. The shadows felt heavier now, and every corner could hide a hunter. But Raiden's eyes were clear, focused. He wasn't just walking toward danger, he was walking toward the truth. And this time, he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for her. The elevator shaft was dark and deep. The cable swayed gently above them, stretching into the unknown. Raiden looked down and then back at Neria. There's no power to the lift, he said. We'll have to climb. Neria nodded, her face pale, but her eyes steady. I'll follow, she said, gripping the edge of the wall tightly. Raiden went first, grabbing the thick cable and pulling himself up. His muscles ached from cryo-sleep, but he kept going. Below him, Neria climbed carefully, one hand after another. When they reached a broken access door halfway down, Raiden kicked it open and pulled her inside. The hallway they entered was colder than the others. Frost clung to the walls, and the lights here still flickered with weak emergency power. This part of the base is older, Raiden said. Very old. They walked slowly, their footsteps echoing down the metal corridor. They passed locked doors, storage rooms, and faded warning signs. Then they reached a large metal door with a red light above it. The words, "Command Archive Level 5 Clearance Only," were barely visible on the scratched metal. Raiden stepped closer, scanning the panel beside the door. "No power," he muttered, then looked at Neria. "Can your energy open it?" She nodded weakly and placed her palm on the panel. A soft glow spread from her hand, and the panel flickered to life. The door hissed and opened slowly, groaning like it hadn't moved in years. Inside was a control room, still mostly intact. Dust covered the screens, and broken glass crunched beneath their boots. In the center of the room was a main console with an old chair. Raiden brushed off the console and activated it. To his surprise, the screen came alive with a hum. "Still breathing," he said with a smirk. Lines of code filled the screen, and then a message appeared. "Welcome, Commander Raiden. Access granted." Neria stepped beside him, looking at the glowing text. "This place. It remembers you," she whispered. Raiden opened the war files, moving through them quickly. Battle maps, troop movements, lost missions, failed outposts, all there, frozen in time. Then he found a classified folder marked Operation Silence. He clicked it, and the screen shifted. A video began playing, showing a group of Talvari aliens kneeling, unarmed, waving white flags. Raiden stared in silence. The recording showed humans attacking anyway, blasting the peaceful group with heavy weapons. Neria turned her face away, eyes wet. Raiden's stomach twisted. This was covered up, he said, voice shaking. "I don't remember this." "I didn't know." "You were there," Neria whispered. "But you didn't fire. You stopped one of the soldiers." "You helped me escape," Raiden searched for more and found something else. A list of protected targets. On that list, under a faded stamp that read, "Non-hostile," was a name, Subject 13. Neria. Raiden sat back, stunned. "You were marked as safe," he said, "but they hunted you." "Anyway," Neria nodded. "They said peace, but chose destruction." Raiden looked at the ceiling. "Angry, lost, all this time. I thought we were the heroes." "You were," she said gently. "Not all of you, but you." He looked at her, confused. "You remembered me all this time," he said. She smiled softly. "You were kind when others were cruel." Raiden closed the file and backed away from the console. "I have to show this," he said. "This can change everything." Neria looked worried. "Be careful," she said. "There are still those who want the truth buried." Raiden nodded, then turned back to the console and began transferring the files to a data crystal. As the download completed, an alert flashed on the screen. "Warning, system core waking, energy signature detected." Neria gasped. "It's the AI core," she said. "It sensed us." Raiden grabbed the data crystal and stuffed it into his pocket. "We need to move," he said. "Now." They rushed out of the archive room. The door hissing closed behind them. As they ran, the floor vibrated, and a loud thudding began behind the walls. The machine had woken up, and it was coming for them. The alarm started as a soft hum. Then came the sharp beeping, louder each second. Red lights blinked across the hallway, warning of something alive, something powerful. Raiden held Neria's hand and pulled her forward. "We need to get out of this section," he said. "The core knows we're here." Neria nodded, her legs still weak. But she moved quickly. Behind them, the walls shook, and a deep mechanical growl echoed through the corridor. The AI core was no longer sleeping. It had scanned their presence, and it was ready to respond. Raiden followed the map he had seen on the archive screen. "There's a service tunnel ahead," he said. "It leads to the lower hangar." As they ran, sparks fell from the ceiling, and smoke started to creep in from behind. Suddenly, Neria stopped, her eyes wide. "There," she whispered, pointing to a side door. "That's signal." "It's a beacon." Raiden looked where she pointed. A small rusted door stood half open, light blinking faintly from inside. They stepped in quickly. Locking the door behind them, inside was a cramped room with broken control panels and a single transmission screen. On that screen, a message was still repeating. To any survivors, "This is Captain Elias Grant. I am injured. The hangar holds the last vessel. Do not let the core escape. Repeat. Do not let the core escape." The message ended and looped again. Raiden stared in disbelief. Elias Grant. "He was my commanding officer," he said. "He was listed as Kia." Neria looked at the floor where dried blood marked a trail. "He was here," she said softly. "He tried to help." They followed the trail to a corner of the room, where a body lay slumped against the wall. A human man, in faded armor, his hand still gripping a data chip. Raiden knelt and gently closed the man's eyes. "Rest now, Captain," he whispered. "We'll finish it." He took the data chip and slid it into the screen. A new map appeared, showing the location of the hidden hangar and the ship buried beneath it. It was old, pre-war design, but it still had working thrusters and shield systems. "We can escape with this," Raiden said. "If we reach it in time." Neria touched the screen. "It's buried deep, under the ground." "Then we dig," Raiden replied, standing up. "Or blow our way through." He grabbed 2 old charges from the locker in the corner, checked them, and nodded. "They still work," he said, suddenly. The walls around them trembled again. The AI was activating defense systems. "Let's go," Raiden said, helping Neria stand. "We're almost there." They opened the back door of the beacon room. Entering a lower service tunnel, the air was thick with smoke, and lights flickered above them. As they moved through, they heard footsteps, not human, not soft, but heavy and sharp. A tall war machine stood ahead, silver and black, with glowing red sensors across its head. Raiden pushed Neria behind him and aimed his broken rifle. The weapon sparked but fired one shot, hitting the machine's leg. The machine staggered but kept moving. Then Neria stepped out, her eyes glowing faintly. She whispered something in her language. A soft chant. The air around her shimmered, and a burst of energy flew from her hands. The machine screamed a strange sound and fell back, its sensors dying out. Neria collapsed right after, her strength gone. Raiden caught her, his arms steady. "You saved me again," he said, his voice low. She smiled faintly. One last time, Raiden lifted her and carried her toward the final blast door. The hangar was just beyond. He set her down and placed the charges on the door as he activated the timer. He whispered, "Hold on, just a little longer." They took cover behind a metal beam. The charges exploded, shaking the whole tunnel. When the smoke cleared, the path was open. Raiden stood and carried Neria inside. The hangar was massive, filled with shadows and echoes. At its center sat a starship, half covered in rubble, but still shining beneath the dust. "It's real," Raiden whispered. "We have a chance." He placed Neria gently on a padded seat near the ship's ramp. "I'll get us out of here," he promised. As he entered the ship, lights flickered on. The voice of the ship's AI greeted him. "Welcome, pilot. Critical situation detected. Begin launch sequence?" Raiden smiled. "Yes," he said, "and prepare for one last fight if needed." Behind him, Neria's eyes fluttered open. She looked at the ship, at Raiden, and at the stars above. They were close now, so close to escaping the ghosts of war. The ship's engine rumbled softly. It was old, but still alive, still willing to fly. Raiden stood at the main console, reading the startup process on the screen. Fuel levels were low, but just enough for one jump. He turned to check on Neria, who was still lying on the seat beside the ramp. Her chest rose and fell slowly, but her face looked pale and tired. He knelt beside her and took her hand gently. "You're going to be okay," he whispered. "We made it." She opened her eyes slightly and smiled, but her smile was weak. "You said that before," she said softly. "Back when the war started." Raiden blinked, surprised. "Did I?" he asked. She nodded. "You told me not to be afraid." Before you pushed me into the escape pod. Raiden's mind flashed, a broken memory trying to return. A burning sky, a young alien girl, a pod. A voice yelling through fire. It was her. He remembered now just a moment. Just one act, but it was real, I remember, he said, his voice shaking. You were the one I saved. Neria smiled again, a tear sliding down her cheek. And I came back. For you. She whispered. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed through the hangar. Raiden jumped up and looked at the screen. Intrusion detected, core signature Apirocia's heart pounded. The A core had traced them, and it was not going to let them leave. Raiden rushed to the weapon systems, but most of the Kens were offline. Only one turret worked, and it was low on energy. Of course, he muttered. One fight left and we're flying with scraps. He looked back at Neria, who was now trying to sit up. You need to rest, he said. I can't, she replied. If the core enters this hangar, it will take the ship and spread again. More war, more death. Raiden helped her stand, steadying her with both hands. There's one more option, she said, her voice serious. The energy inside me. The one that saved you. I can give it to the ship. Raiden's eyes widened. What happens to you if you do that? He asked. She looked at him gently. My heart stops. But your war ends. He stepped back, shaking his head. No, he said firmly. There has to be another way. There isn't, she replied, her hand on his chest. This ship will not fly fast enough without it. And the core will kill us both. Raiden looked into her eyes, full of peace and pain. I didn't survive the war just to lose you now. He said. You didn't survive. She whispered. You were saved. So you could help others. Raiden turned away, fists clenched. He couldn't watch her die again. Not after just finding her, not after learning the truth. Suddenly, the hangar doors shook violently. The II core had arrived, massive and armored, its long limbs crawling through the blast hole in the wall. Its voice echoed through the metal space. Targets identified, neutralize, recover assets. Raiden ran to the turret controls and fired. The beam hit the machine's leg, slowing it down. Sparks flew, but it kept moving. Then, Neria stepped into the ship's core chamber, placing both hands on the glowing crystal inside. Light burst around her, brighter than before. Her hair lifted in the air, her body glowing like a star. Raiden saw it from the turret and screamed, Neria, stop, please. But it was too late. Her energy flowed into the ship, and the engines roared to full power. The shields came online, brighter than ever. The ship fired a second pulse, automatically pure light, hitting the AI core directly. The giant machine howled, its armor melting, its body collapsing to the floor in sparks and smoke. Raiden ran to the chamber. Smoke still thick in the air. He found her lying beside the glowing core. Still quiet, he dropped to his knees, pulling her close. Her eyes opened slightly, just once. I told you. I'd save you, she whispered, and then she went still. No, Raiden whispered. No, no, no. Tears fell from his eyes, mixing with ash on his cheeks. He held her for a long time, not as a soldier, but as a man who had just lost something precious. Behind him, the ship hummed with new life. Ready to fly, but Raiden didn't move, not yet, not without her, not without her heart. The engines of the old warship purred like a sleeping giant. The hangar was quiet again, filled with smoke, wreckage, and silence. Raiden sat near the glowing core, still holding Neria in his arms. Her body was light, her face calm, as if she had simply fallen asleep, but he knew, deep inside, that her light had been given away to save him, to save everything. He touched her cheek gently and whispered, You didn't have to do this alone. The ship's I spoke, its voice soft and respectful, core systems fully online. Power stabilized. Awaiting pilot input, Raiden didn't answer right away. He stayed there for a while, just breathing, just remembering. The same girl he had saved once during the war had returned to save him. She had waited 6 years, followed his signal, and given everything she had left. Finally, he stood up slowly. lifting her carefully and placing her on a soft bench in the captain's quarters. He covered her with a warm blanket and sat beside her. "I'll carry your light now," he said quietly. "I promise." He walked back to the pilot's seat, eyes focused and mind clear. The screen lit up with maps of nearby systems, damaged colonies, distress signals, and war ruins still untouched. He inserted the data crystal that held the truth, the secret files, the hidden betrayal, the real story of the war. "This will reach every surviving command," he told the ship. "No more lies." He selected a safe zone for launch and activated the flight sequence. "Engaging thrusters," the AI announced. The ship rumbled, then lifted, slowly rising from the broken hangar into the dark sky. As it climbed through the clouds, Raiden looked out the window at the stars above. They seemed brighter now, cleaner, free, far. Behind, the ruins of the battle base crumbled, burying the dead machines forever. No more AI cores, no more orders of war, just silence, peace. Raiden set the ship on autocourse and returned to Neria's side. He sat with her, holding her hand again. "You gave me hope when I had none," he said. "You believed in me, even when I forgot who I was." He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the ship drift quietly through space. Then, something strange happened. A soft glow began to pulse from the ship's core room. The same color as Neria's light. Raiden stood quickly and ran to the chamber. The energy within the core was changing calmer, softer, more alive. Then he heard it, faint but real, her voice. "Raiden." He turned around, eyes wide. She stood at the doorway, weak but breathing. Her body shimmered with a faint light, not as bright as before, but real. He rushed to her and caught her in his arms. "You're alive," he whispered, almost afraid to believe it. "I don't know how," she said. "But the ship, it gave something back." Raiden smiled with tears in his eyes. "Then maybe it saw what I saw," he said. "A heart worth saving." She leaned on him, tired but smiling. "Where are we going?" she asked. Raiden looked at the stars through the window. "Anywhere we want," he said. "The war's over, but our journey is just beginning." They stood together on the deck as the ship flew into open space. Neria touched the console and whispered something in her language. A small flower bloomed from the surface, a symbol of her people, of peace. Raiden smiled. "We'll plant more, everywhere we go." Neria looked at him, her eyes full of new hope. "We'll help others," she said. "Not just survive, but heal." Raiden nodded. "We'll make sure no one forgets." And so, the human and the alien girl flew into the stars. Not as enemies, not as soldiers, but as survivors, as friends, as something more. The stars watched as their ship disappeared into the darkness, carrying truth, light, and the hope of a new future. It wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning after the end.